And when we last spoke, it wasn't official that there would be a second season. So I'm curious what it was like learning that news, that you were granted that opportunity to revisit this world.
I mean, it was great. It was a nail biter because we had to right size the budget and do some other things to get a second season greenlit. And it was great when we learned we were going to do it. Everybody was excited to go back to it. But it took a minute, so it was a bit of a nail biter.
And were there any kind of pitfalls you wanted to avoid? Because sophomore seasons can be tough. Is there, like, what was your approach stepping into this?
Just make it good is the main thing. It's hard to write something defensively. You need to just write the best story that you see. And I think knowing we were going to shoot in New Zealand, it was important to really maximize the locations that we got to use and really write with those in mind. So those were the big things. And then just, managing the ensemble. It's a huge amount of actors and they're all incredible, and just making sure everybody has enough to do.
Yeah. And, this season's, you kind of mentioned it, the scope is much bigger. The scale of it it's huge. And you have all these different relationships amongst the different crew members. And it's still, even though as big as it still feels small and personal. How do you find that balance
nice compliment.
when you're telling these stories?
That's a nice compliment. It's hard, especially when you go and you have all these toys. You have like pirate ships and you have like a giant screen and you have all this stuff. And then you really do want to make it feel intimate when you're shooting it and make it feel like it's small production, because sometimes I think the size kills comedy. Like a giant budget can kill comedy. A giant LED screen can kill comedy and make everybody tense up if you let it. It helps that we're in a second season and everybody knows and loves each other and loves working together. And there's a feeling of a family on set, and those things help a lot.
Yeah, it's funny, you rarely think about, at least I rarely think about, like, the technical side of it, which is kind of says a lot about what's going on screen with these characters. And it's so focused on these love stories and these, unique relationships.
That's another nice compliment, because it takes a lot of work from so many talented people, especially our head of visual effects, David Van Dyke, to make all of the technical stuff. You don't even think about it. Like whenever you see water on the show, they built it. Not on a beach, but if you see water from the ship, if you see anybody in a dinghy rowing, they build all of that. Which is, it breaks my brain to even think about how they do it, but boy, do they do it.
Yeah, you just froze my brain. I'm like, wait, how? None of that's just, on location, or like, how does that all?
Some of my favorite shots in the show are someone in a dinghy rowing, and all of the water around them is built. And a lot of times we'll shoot it against the LED backdrop. But it's a concrete floor when we're shooting it. And then you have to be like, hey, so what's this gonna look like? And then David Van Dyke can usually be like, oh, it's okay. It'll be good. And then it's good. And then I see it in post and it's good.
That's wonderful that you can have that faith in your team they're pulling their weight, you're doing your thing. So everyone can focus on what they're doing and just story first.
It's the ultimate luxury to have like a bunch of people that are so dialed in and good at what they do that you don't even really have to manage for it necessarily. Rarely happens.
Yeah. Another thing I loved about this season were these kind of, then you had these last season as well, but these kind of smaller, sweet moments, these out of the blue, seemingly like that work in this world, like Izzy singing Livy and Rose. Where did those originate?
Well, that's specifically for, writing a second season and your actors better. And so having Khan and knowing that Khan can sing, and then wanting to give him so many things to do in the season was like, oh, well, yeah, we'll find a place for that. And a lot of times, we can't blow things up on this show as much as other shows blow things up. We have to kind of pick our shots. So, but that's the fun of it, where it's like the story of the show is in the workplace of it and in the small moments of it. And those are the things in anything that I love to see. But it's the meat of this show. And I think it's what makes it different from other people doing things in this genre.
What's it like on set shooting a scene like that? Is it fun at all, or does it just become work? It seems
Yeah,
like
it's hard. Like, it's not an easy show to make.
Mhm.
It's hard because it's like, there's a lot of casts. You're on a ship, it's a set, but it's like there are parameters that, you can only move the camera certain ways. But it's fun. If it stops being fun, you have to hang it up. And it's fun to
Mhm.
go to work. You go to work on a pirate ship. Like, how can that be bad? And there are definitely ways that it could be bad. Like, if somebody's being a dick, or like, that would be a long day. But it's a good bunch of people. It's a good bunch of personalities. It doesn't always happen that way. And I think, try to keep the atmosphere. Like, we play music, and we move very quickly on this show. And again, we're just lucky that the crew and the department heads and everybody are so dialed in and so serious about it, and so serious about making it good. And when people come at it like that, it's just infectious. And even when everybody's tired, and we shot a shipwreck thing, and we had to cover everyone in rain, and like fans were blowing it, and that was a long day. But if people get the sense that it's going to be good and it's going to look cool, they'll go along with it on this show, and it's a nice feeling.
So, going into Ed and Steve's relationship this season, it was kind of all over the place. They're at times they're like a young couple bickering,
Yeah.
and like high school romance, and then there's these moments of romantic bliss. What were some of your goals for this couple in season 2?
Well, I wanted to have to grapple with being in a relationship, and even grapple to, how are they gonna, they're still in the early phase of a relationship, and I think they're middle-aged men, but they're very immature in some ways. Like, this is their first real relationship that wasn't an arranged marriage, or whatever else. So I think to see them try to navigate each other and be comfortable with each other as just a couple, and kind of a young couple in terms of emotional intelligence, those are the fun things to me, where it's wonderful to see two characters fall in love. But then we all know, all of us who are in relationships know that love is work, and
Mhm.
that's where it gets interesting, I think, is to see how are they going to do it.
Yeah, they don't have many moments of it, just like kind of bliss, and like where life is simple. There's always a mutiny, or someone shooting cannons, or a sword fight, or something that kind of interrupts like your normal, hey, let's go see a movie, and kind of learn about each other. They don't have that luxury of a normal life, so it's really
They have
interesting to
some of
watch.
those moments there's like breakfast in bed, and
Yeah.
there's they go out to eat at one point, but it is fun to pick out, like, yeah, what are the date things that you do as a pirate? you know Finding those things in this genre, that's the fun of it to me, is like, where do you put the Nora Ephron beats in a pirate thing? Like, that's fun.
Hmm. And are you happy where they ended up as individuals and a couple this season? Because they're kind of heading in different directions. They're not always in sync, or actually they're kind of rarely in sync, it seems. But then they find those moments. So are you happy where it all closed out for them at
Yeah, I
the end
like
of the
that they're
season?
going to try to open it in. I don't think it'll go well, but I like that they're trying to do it, and I think they'll figure it out at some point. But I think that yeah, I like that for them. I like them turning the ship over to the crew, and I like them saying, you know what, we're going to stay put. Neither of us are going to run off, and we're going to be together, and maybe try to have some of those moments that you're talking about.
Mhm.
You know, maybe have more of them. And I like that. That's a more mature couple than we're seeing in the middle of the season, and definitely at the end of the first season.
And this season, you also had some new pirates come on board, the Pirate Queen and Bonnie. And it's rare that you hear about female pirates. You know, every once in a while they pop up. But what is it about these specific pirates that caught your interest?
I mean, there's a lot of dudes on the show. And so, and then also Jenkins is the most successful pirate in history. And the fact that we don't know who she is in the West, and I didn't know who she was until I started to get into stuff. But she made the entire country China had to sign a treaty with her to get her to stop, because she was so good at what she did. So wildly successful pirate. And I think Anne Bonny and Mary Read, they're kind of more well known, but I think a lot of pirate history is suspect. I think a lot of it is whitewashed. There's a lot that's skipped over. A lot of it is pretty straight washed too. And I think it was a weirder, more colorful, more queer experience than what we get when we look at a traditional pirate movie or story that we're used to.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and I think that's what's great is going in and exploring these stories that typically, like you said, are kind of either brushed aside or just, you know, you kind of get a very vanilla flavor when it comes to pirate films. And
Yeah,
pirate,
I mean, it's like in history, it's just not there. Like, you know, there's a history of piracy written by somebody, I forget the name, something Johnson, and it was like the archetypical history of the pirates. But a lot of this stuff was propaganda written by people that were like, don't be pirates. Pirates are bad. So you kind of, you know, it's fun to go in and just reinvent. We'll never be able to restore it, but just try to reinvent some of it and explore some of the weirdness and interesting things that can exist in the genre.
Do you have a list of other pirates that you are ready to explore in coming seasons?
I'm sure I do. I'll go look at the thing. There's like, you know, you look at there's thousands. There's like Johnny Thunder legs and Griffith McGurk. When it comes time, you know, if we do this again, I'm sure we'll go through and find someone interesting to bring into it. It's always kind of like a clutch thing, or like, who'd be good? This season we have Ned Lowe too, and you know, there's some interesting people. They never end up resembling the actual pirate. They always end up being very weird and very different.
Such great guest stars. That's another thing. You know, Bronson Pinchot is. I grew up watching him, and you know, seeing him come back with you know, on a series that you love it's always like, I don't know. Sometimes the world just works out that way, that these things that you love are somehow drawn together. At least it seems.
Yeah, it's nice when you know, usually the guest star is a nail biter, because especially in New Zealand, it's hard to get people to relocate for as long as you need to. Like when you're in LA, it's easier to just be like, hey, you come for a couple of days and do it. But Bronson's fantastic, and he was very generous with his time, and I think he's great in the episode.
Yeah, excellent. And you know, this on the ship full of misfits, they're kind of all searching for something. Is there one character or relationship that you've enjoyed exploring the most?
I mean, Izzy. I love the character of Izzy. I love working with Khan. And it was just fun. He's my favorite character, and I think he's the one I relate to the most, and is the most fun to build out and kind of push against the expectations of that character from the first season. And really just, you know, build up with Khan and see, you know, what we can do together. I mean, he's an amazingly talented actor, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. So, you know, I want to work with him on everything.
Yeah, he's great. In the series or in the season, there's mention of the pirate navy looking for a living wage, profit sharing. It all sounds very familiar. Were the strikes in mind while the season was being written, and just the fair treatment of the artist out there?
Strikes weren't, but I mean, everyone's getting squeezed, you
Mhm.
know. um, it's also uh, not a stretch to imagine these things in pirate. Like the real Stede Bonnet wanted to give his pirates a living wage, which like nobody did that. You steal for your money. That's how you eat, you know. So it's kind of fun to think of these pirate ships as like startups a little bit, and they were thinking about some of these things about like a lot of these social democratic ideas that we have came from if they didn't come from, they at least were being embodied on pirate crews, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and speaking of the strike, it's got to be tough for you and the cast and the crew to have this release at this time and not have the access to the fans and kind of tell their story. What has it been like this year with this kind of unique situation for the
It's a
cast?
bummer. It's a bummer. Like I wish we all made this together and we should be able to celebrate it together. And these things happen, these labor actions, and
Mhm.
you it's a bummer. I think it could have been resolved sooner. This is the way it worked out. I'm glad WGA got what they needed. I'm glad it looks like SAG-AFTRA is going to get what they need. They'll get a good deal. So it's important that these things happen. And it's just, luck of the draw. What can you do? But boy, it's fun to celebrate this with everybody.
Do you think, I'm fingers crossed it's like 48 hours away or less. If SAG comes through, do you think we'll get an opportunity to have some of the cast and the team tell their stories?
Oh man, I hope so. I hope so. I don't know how you stop somebody like Samba Shoot from going out. I mean, he's like the cast like historian and videographer. Like the amount of behind the scenes footage. Um, so yeah, it'll be good to have this like lifted and have people speak to the season because everybody did such great work. We all like making shit, and everybody's excited to get back to making shit because nobody likes this stuff. So we'll figure it out. It'll get there. This will be a bad and probably forgotten memory in months.
And I was at Comic-Con last week, New York Comic-Con,
Oh, right on.
and it was amazing to see the amount of presence the show had in cosplay, but also the thousands of people lined up to go to unfortunate conversation that couldn't speak about the show, but just to be in the room with the cast and that energy. Why are the fans so passionate? What do you think it is about the series?
I love it. I don't know. Like it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. Um, I'm just trying to enjoy it while it stays positive. And who knows? I mean, it's just you make something, you put it out into the world, and you have to really dork out over something to make it. You have to obsess about it. And to find people that want to share that obsession is just a great feeling.
Yeah, it's a joy to watch. That Comic-Con is fantastic because everywhere you walk is just somebody celebrating something they're passionate about, and to go off and see Ed and Steeds all over the place, and all these like it's not just me. There's hundreds of them. It's fantastic. So
It's so cool. Every time I see the, and then the costumes are amazing. If somebody
oh
makes
yeah,
it's amazing. Like everything around it, I'm in awe of the stuff that people do around this show. It's like we all are. I think we're all pinching ourselves because I think that rarely happens.
I'm just curious, how many seasons do you have in your head? Like, could the story end here and you'd be satisfied, or do you have you know a roadmap for this crew?
I think I have a good sense of where a season 3 would go. And I think season 3 would be the conclusion of Ed and Steed's story. But I do think, it's a big world, and there's so many characters, and there's so many things you can do with it, that I think there's room for a story after the Ed and Steed relationship. And I think there's so many ways you could take this in success. So if we get a chance to do it again, it'd be great. I'd love to take a third swing at it, definitely, and wrap it up properly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I didn't imagine a series without those two, but it'd be interesting. You have so many great characters and so many, the history books are full, or well, of some of them. But there's things there that you can dig into, and I'd love to see where you go with it.
Yeah, with a cast this deep and a bench this deep, any number of these actors could, lead a series. So it's just wonderful to write for these folks, and it's fun to kick this world around and do some things with it, do some weird things with it. Who's your friend?
It's been a pleasure.
I saw Tail.
Oh yeah, that's my cat.
Yeah. Hi.
Someone's hungry.
Hi, baby. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your work putting this out there. And I really am looking forward to following more of these tales.
Thanks, Stephen.